Wow, it's the Sunday after Easter. Just last week we heard those wonderful Easter hymns. We saw the procession. So many exciting things happened. And this morning we're singing one of my favorite songs, The Lamb. We proclaim that message. The kids just got done proclaiming, He rose, my heart with thanks now overflows. Wow. And when we see a little bit of that going on in our readings. With the reading from Acts, we have Peter going up and proclaiming that beautiful message of Easter, that Jesus is the Savior who's risen to save us. And he even starts talking about this universal restoration. So not only do we have this amazing hope, this amazing joy based in what Jesus already did for us, we're looking forward to Him coming back. And then we have John writing us and talking about how, as children of God, as believers, we are conquerors. We've overcome the world because of what Jesus did. So then it's a little awkward when we get to the gospel reading. If you remember last week, Pastor Steve pointed out that Mark left us hanging on kind of an awkward note. And he's kind of probably chuckling as he writes. Knowing that the readers know the rest of the story, he ends his gospel with the word, afraid. That word is still lingering over our gospel reading today. We get in right into it, right off the bat. Because it's been a week since Jesus rose from the dead. He appears to the women tell the disciples, and then they spend a week in a locked room. I want you to think back for a second. Think back to last week. May have gone great for you, it may have gone okay, but imagine what it would have been like to be in a locked room for a week. Not my idea of fun. So here's the disciples in a locked room, and Jesus appears to them, and He says, "Peace be with you." And they're excited, as they should be. And then they turn around and spend another week in a locked room. So imagine taking that last week in a locked room and adding on another week. Kind of a downer, and it's really easy to kind of point the blame at Thomas. Here the disciples are all excited. They've seen Jesus. They come up to Thomas, and he says, "I don't think so." And so we point at Thomas and go, wow, he's just full of fear and doubt. But that's okay, because in the end, Jesus takes out his fear and gives him faith, and everybody lives happily ever after. But I don't think that's where John's going this morning. That's not the John I'm reading. The John that we read in the epistle reading isn't that way. He's talking about conquerors. How can he go from conquerors to, bad boy Thomas? Fear or faith? Pick one. Well, let's take another look. Let's back up for a second. First of all, we're talking about John. Now, Mark was written after Matthew, so he knew his readers knew the rest of the story. John's writing after Mark. So his readers have had two chances to hear the gospel. They really know the rest of the story. And he's also writing at the end of his life. He's probably imprisoned. And it's after the temple has been destroyed and the struggling Christian church has been spread out all over the area. And these Christians are now facing a threat to their life every day. They have to live in fear for their lives. So, I don't know about you, but I don't think John's posing it as a fear or faith kind of an issue. Another point, we're talking about John here, and he has a very different approach to the disciples. For example, John is the guy that comes out and comes to the defense of Peter, and he records Jesus reinstating and forgiving Peter, not once, not twice, but 3 times. Once for every time that he denied Jesus. That that, to me, that says only one thing. Well, in this case, that John's got the unity of the church in mind. Here they've been spread out, they're enduring persecution, and John's saying, don't pick on my boy Peter. Jesus reinstated him. Jesus forgave him. He does that with Thomas. Now the other gospel writers will drop Thomas's name and just keep on going. Not John. John has a very different perspective. He kind of fills out the picture of Thomas. It starts way back in John 11 when Jesus is talking about Lazarus' death. And Thomas pipes up and says, Lord, let us go too, that we may die with him. You see, Thomas got it before anybody else. He figured out that there's something important about to happen. He may not have known exactly what it was, but he figured it out. And he does it again in chapter 14. Jesus is talking about how you must go away, and you know the way. And Thomas goes, excuse me, we don't know the way. How will we know where you're going? He figures it out. Jesus isn't just talking about another little trip around the Judean countryside. He's talking about a more important trip back to the Father. And Jesus doesn't come back and say, oh, come on, Thomas. No. He says those words that you and I know and love so much. I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me, through Jesus. It's not about Thomas. No. So when we get to chapter 20, you'd kind of expect a different perspective. Thomas has been getting it all along. He's sort of the Hugh Brittenham, if you will, of the disciples. He gets it before everybody else is ready. And, you know, when I look at my own life, personally, and the life of people I know, I don't want to pose things in a fear or faith kind of a construct. I think that's really dangerous. Like, for example, when Lynn was still pregnant with Malachi, I had a very real fear. What if something happened to one or both of them? Does that mean I didn't have faith at that point in my life? What about the family that's in the emergency room? And it's not necessarily a life-threatening thing, but there's so many possibilities. So many things could be going wrong. It's been so long since a nurse or doctor was in the room. The pain's increasing. They're afraid of what the nurse or doctor might be saying next. They're hanging on those moments, waiting to hear those words, but they're not sure what's coming. They're afraid. What about the family that's watching their income not quite as strong as it used to be? The bills are going up. They keep hearing news about Florida and Lee County having so much foreclosure, and they're starting to wonder, how long will we be able to pay the bills? They're afraid of what the future might hold for them. Do they not have faith either?